This is the Leviton D4206 lighting control panel. This unit is capable of controlling up to 6 separate dimmer circuits. Currently, based on the submittals that we have for this particular project, these units are only controlling 1 circuit each, so there is an expansion capability for you guys if you need it in the future. Real quickly, we'll go through the menu, talk about all of the buttons across the front so you kind of know what they are, what they do. If you have any questions, just kind of wait till the end and then we'll go through everything at once at the end. Bottom left-hand corner of the screen is where all of your menu control buttons are at. Above that is the display, which currently notes what scene you're in, basic date and time, information, things like that. To the right-hand side of the panel, these are your individual zones. There are 8 zones that are capable in this panel. Currently, we are, of course, only using 1, so you kind of see what those are. And then across the bottom right, you'll have a max and a off button, and then you also have 8 preset scene buttons that you can program as well. We'll kind of go through the menu real quickly. So currently, we have the display shows max, which is the max scene is lit. Then you notice where it says S17. That means that is scene 17. That's this particular button right here, which is also the max button. The off button is called scene 18. That's just what the numbers of those buttons are. Shows today's date, which is Wednesday, and then a time of 2:04 p.m., which is what the current time is. The E button, or the E signal, never worry about that because it changes based on what's going on. Menu-wise, the first thing that pops up is the view schedule. These units are capable of scheduling. Do keep in mind that it's a 7-day program that you can put in there. The same 7-day schedule will apply every week. So if you want to change it week to week, then you're going to have to come in and reprogram it every week based on what's going on. Generally, some things that Kevin and I had talked about earlier was setting a preset for sunrise and sunset based on the room, and then also turning the lights off at a specific time every night. Let's say 11 o'clock, everyone's out of the building, you know they're out. You can set a schedule in here to make sure that those lights are out if someone leaves it on by mistake. So that's an option that's in here. This is how you would view the schedule. If you hit select save, it'll show you E01 is the event. Currently there's no events programmed, and then the dates that it's active. So all the capitals means that it would be active Saturday to Sunday, or Sunday to Saturday, and whatever time that would happen. Of course, we don't have anything in there, so it's not going to matter. If you want to edit the schedule, the next menu option down is edit it. Hit select save. Then here you can go in and hit event 1. We'll select save. And then you can change it. So you can use the up and down arrows to change what event you want it to. S01, of course, would be scene 1. Whatever we program in this button would happen at a specific time every day. So for example, let's say we want the lights to go out. We'll change this. So we're going to do a off command with BW as blink warn, which means the lights would turn off for a split second, then come right back on. That's kind of a warning to say, hey, the lights are getting ready to go out. I generally leave that off because most people see when the lights go out, they kind of freak out for a second. I'd much rather them just go completely out. So off with the blink warn of off. We're going to hit select save. We're going to make it active 7 days a week. And then we're going to change the time to 11 p.m. and then hit select save. So now we have an event scheduled in there. So the lights in this particular room will go off without warning 7 nights a week at 11 o'clock.
And that scene is only applied to
this particular room.
Okay.
Yep. Now, if the room is completely wide open and everything is joined, then it will affect the rest of the room. Does that make sense? But if this is partitioned off, it will only affect this room. So it all depends on what's combined with what as to how it all works. Just to be on the safe side, I would put the same schedule in all of the machines in the controllers just to make sure they do the same thing. So now that we've got that in there, if we go back up to view schedule, then of course you can see that event in the view schedule. Okay? Next option down is the scheduler. You can turn the scheduler on and off. So even if you have a schedule programmed in it, you can enable it to actually run the schedule or turn the schedule off without having to delete everything that's in there.
Which would then leave it up to manual control entirely.
Exactly, exactly. You do have, the next option down is the sequencer. You guys are never going to use this because you only have one circuit in each room. Sequencers are if there's multiple circuits in a room and you need things to turn on and off in a specific order. So that's kind of why that's there. So that's not an option you guys are going to use. The next one is, of course, edit sequencer and then the sequencer off. Edit labels. So you do have the option of editing the labels for all of the scene buttons as well as all of the individual zone buttons. Across the top you have these round buttons. If we press one of them, it will pop up and tell you zone 1 and then what that zone level currently is set at. We can change where it says zone 1 by going to the edit labels and then select save, and then we select zone or scene to edit. So let's take scene 1 and then I always hit clear to start it out. Now this for you guys isn't will take a few minutes to kind of understand, but for me it's a little bit easier. So the letters go from A all the way down. I starts here, goes across, R starts here, and then goes all the way to Z.
So the zone buttons, the fader buttons.
And yeah, the up fader buttons and the down fader buttons. Okay? So if we're going to say lights, then it would be, let's see, so LIGHTS. Okay, so I just programmed in lights, hit select save, and then we're going to step out of this. So if I hit that button again, now instead of saying zone 1, it now says lights. That's the option you have. Again, with having one circuit in each room, that's your prerogative whether or not you actually want to label them or not.
Now, that was for labeling zones. Does that also work for the scene buttons?
It also works for the 8 scene buttons across the bottom. You can also do the max and off button, but I would also recommend not to do those.
Just to label max.
Exactly. But you can label those however you want. So if you want the lights in this room to be at 100%, 50%, 75%, 25%, you can label those as 100%, 75, 50, 25, 0, however you decide you want to do it. So.
Multiple indicators of not only the light, but the level indicator.
Yeah, the level indicator here will change as well. So, and we'll go through that in just a second. That's edit labels. Edit exclude, you're never going to worry about. Set date and time, if you need to set the date and time, you can do that through this. Because they're all connected on the same network, theoretically, setting one date and time should change them all. So just kind of keep that in mind. If for some reason the network goes down, then you have to change them individually. So I just always keep an eye on that. And then daylight savings times. These units do have daylight savings times built into them. They're currently on the US 2007 standard, which if I'm not mistaken, is the third Sunday in November and the first Sunday in April, I think is what they're set to. So you don't have to change those, but if you decide you wanted to, that's where you can turn that on or off. And then record lock, station lock. So record lock is the one that I recommend for most people. Record lock is the ability to lock the station so that no one can record to these 8 preset buttons, or the max and off button. They can create their own look, but they can't change anything within the system. So it kind of prevents, prying fingers from getting too far into it and screwing it all up. You have the ability to turn it on and off. By setting the record lock, you have to pick a 3-digit code, you input it, and then anytime that you want to make a change, it will ask you what's the code, you input the code, so on and so forth. These numbers across the bottom, 1 through 8, max and off, also act as a keypad. So 1 through 8 is actually 1 through 8 if you need a key code, as well as max being 9 and off being 0, if that makes sense. The station lock is not one I typically recommend because of the fact that with the station lock specifically, if you lock the station out, then you have to know the code to get into the station to make it do anything. Other than that, it's just going to run on the schedule of whatever you pre-programmed into it. So in a multi-purpose facility like this, it's not beneficial to do a station lock. It is beneficial to do the record lock though. So those are things to keep in mind. Once you set the station lock and set the record locks, then you can turn them on and off. But again, you have to know that 3-digit code to get into those. This particular panel I have set currently in the administrative mode, which is the additional menu options, so I can explain these to you. Some of the options we see from this point forward, you're not going to see in a normal operation. You have to know how to get into the back menu to get some of these additional things. Assign zones is where I have the ability to assign each of these 6 individual dimmers to a specific zone, so that if you decided to add more lights into the room and you wanted to control them independently or differently from each other, we could put them on a different level indicator across the front. So those are some options that are there. Edit network, again, I've already set that, so you guys don't have to worry about it. That just gives it the network address. Personality, same thing. Edit local dimmers, we can change how the dimmers within the box operate based on what kind of balance they're being connected to and things like that. So again, you're not going to have to mess with that. Configure remote panels, you won't see. Astro time, if you decide that you guys want to use the astrological clock and use the sunrise and sunset, let me know. We'll set up the astro time to whatever the closest major city is. For us is Atlanta. So that way there's a spreadsheet that's loaded into the device that has the standard sunrise sunset times based on the latitude, longitude, that gets it pretty close to where it should be. And then miscellaneous settings. Again, there are settings in there you're never going to worry about. And then the last screen that you'll always see is this is just an information screen. It says it's a D4206, what version of software is in it, what the network ID number is, and then what software build is in this. So again, it's just not something you're really going to see. So standard operation, you're going to see it with the whatever scene selected and the date and time in the LCD display window. Let's talk about programming real quickly. So currently, I have programmed button number 1 as well as the max on and off, max and off buttons for you. So number 1 is a duplicate of max. So if there's anyone who wants to come into the room, just tell them they can hit number 1. Lights are going to come up. That's 100%. If I want to change it to a separate value, let's say 50%. So we'll use the down arrow button on zone 1, change the level to 50%, and then all I have to do is hold button number 2 down, let it flash. The display changes. It says record to scene, lets me know that I'm recording to scene number 2, and then it has a current default fade rate of 5 seconds. Again, that is an option that you can change as well. To save it, hit select save. It'll say recording to scene 2, and voila, scene 2 recorded. So I can go back to scene 1, which will be 100%. We'll notice the LED changes. It takes 5 seconds because that's the standard. If I hit button 2, scene 2 fading, and it'll fade down to 50%. So just like the car stereo in your car, same thing. So once the join combine panel is functioning correctly, the way this will work is that all of the rooms are set up with scene 1. So whatever you option in scene 1 will make all of the rooms do the same thing.
According to the scene 1 in their control?
No, according to the scene 1 in the major in the master, whatever that button's being pushed. Okay. So if we have all of these rooms connected, I hit scene 1 here, it's going to submit whatever's in scene 1 to all of those rooms. If I go to that room and that has a different scene 1, then it would do what's in that scene 1 to all of the rooms. So that, for consistency's sake, you know,
Program all the same way.
Program all the same way. So, is there any questions concerning this?
Just to clarify, each zone is all of the lights entirely in each section?
Yes. Yes. So zone 1 in this section.
Road control or
No. They have been wired as one complete circuit. He's not standing there, so I'm going to tell you this. If you wanted to recircuit them, yes, that is an option. You could have them split up into rows and then add multiple zones to this. This has the capability. There's some additional equipment. They'd have to buy some more power extenders to make it work, but yes, it could be done.
Okay.
So,
which is helpful for future expansion.
Yes.
Like we really need to change this. Okay.
Yeah. So you do have the option to expand it's there. It
Another
just,
project on top of it, but
Yeah.
the capability's there.
yes. Yeah, so you wouldn't have to change the controller, you just had to add some power extenders in the ceiling and then split the circuits up. That's all that. So, it's, that's not hard at all. Any other questions?
Does it automatically log out of that admin mode, or are you going to log out of it?
I'll log out of it before we leave.
Okay.
So, and the easiest way to do that is just to hold the menu cancel button and let it reboot. And just so that you know, when it does reboot, the lights are going to go out for a split second, and then they'll restore to the current level. So it says, please wait rebooting. It'll take a second. Lights go out, and then it'll come back up. And there you go. Now, one thing I forgot to point out to you that I want to make sure that you understand is in the middle here of the time, currently you see a colon. That means that the system is functioning correctly. If you ever come in and you see that as a semicolon or as a straight line, there's an issue. Something is not working right. And so every device will work independently, but they all won't work together because the whole network doesn't function. So that's one of those things to keep in mind.
Which is how it was when you arrived.
Exactly. So what you're going to have to do at that point, generally I would tell you to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, there's a problem, you know, and give you some troubleshooting steps to kind of go through it and see what's going on. That just becomes a question of how deep do you want to dig into it before calling somebody like me to come look at it. So, okay. Questions, comments, concerns? Okay.
The only clarifying question I have, when you're speaking of network, you're just talking about the peer-to-peer between these devices.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, there's no external control to this. This is an internal network between.
And there's no
all of-
external hardware outside of what's contained in these boxes.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So, yeah, they have a proprietary communications protocol that links them all together called Luminet, and it's just a low voltage, you know, communications protocol is all it is. So, okay. Okay, so these are D4000 entry stations. These stations contain 8 buttons, and they have been programmed as a slave to one of the master control units for the hallway and then in one of the classrooms. Along the left-hand side, there are 4 scene buttons, scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4. On the right-hand side, you have a max button, an off button, and an up and down. 4 scene buttons duplicate the exact same 4 scene buttons on the master station. They do not duplicate 5, 6, 7, and 8, so it's only the first 4. Max and off work exactly the same, and then up and down works as a up and down for the entire unit. So let's say future expansion, you have zones on that controller. You hit the up button, all 6 zones are going to go up. Hit the down button, all 6 are going to go down. Because you only have 1 zone per unit right now, it's just an up and down intensity is all it is. So.
And again, it's a slave to the
What-
master, so when the walls are deployed, the sensors are catching that. It's just going to control the hallway.
Yeah, exactly.
You could actually control the whole room if everything was open.
That's correct. That's correct. So if I hit max on this with all of the partitions open, then yes, it'll turn all of the lights in all 5 rooms up to full. If I hit off, of course, it'll turn them all off. Quick, easy. Okay? That'll work. And then I'll show you the.
Well, just one clarifying, we're just putting 2 and 2 together. If we have the main one, if we have the master for the slave locked out, this is also locked out.
Yes. Yeah, so if you did a station lock on the master for this slave, then this slave will not work as well. So that, again, that's kind of why I recommend never setting the station lock, because it kind of you'll mess yourself up long term. Record lock is the way to
But
go.
if we ran into kids playing with the buttons or whatever,
Yeah, then I would definitely put station locks on it.
lock the station and out control.
Yep, and it locks out the separate controllers as well. Okay, so this is the partition control station for all 5 of these rooms, actually all 6 of these rooms, because they're set up individually. Currently, the way that the panel is set up is that the room where the partition is located, or where the control station is located, is here in room 5, which is kind of, I would have turned it 90 degrees, but that's just me.
We're reordering the panels. Are they just going to replace the parts on it?
Yeah, they're just going to replace the parts on it. Yeah, because they've already screen printed the front of it. It would require a new screen print and all that stuff. So room 5 is the room that we're currently in. Room 6 is the room to my left. And then, of course, the hallway, room 3, room 2, and room 1, which is the cafeteria. So each of the partitions on along the center divider have a set of infrared emitters and receivers. So the way that this is set up is that every switch is 3 positions. So you have a join, which is all the way to the top. You have auto, which is in the center, and then you have separate, which is all the way down. For the most part, I would leave them in auto. So what would happen is that when the partition breaks the beam of the infrared emitters, the light will go out, and that means that that particular room has been separated from everything else. So the controller that is in that room only controls that room once that partition breaks that beam.
That was my question. What's being joined and separated? So the rooms are being joined and separated.
Okay, so the join and separate,
Not the walls being joined, but the space is being joined.
yes.
Or cut off. Okay.
Yes. So join means that we are actually allowing one controller to operate multiple rooms.
That would be when partition is closed, right?
That is when the partition is open. If the space is,
Open area, we call it. I
Yeah.
call it closed, but you talk
Yeah.
about
Oh,
open.
well, that's why I've been using the word deployed and
Yeah.
retracted.
okay, so deploy, and I'll use deployed and retracted. Okay, so when the walls are retracted
Yeah.
and the space is wide open, then all of these will be joined. So one controller can control the entire space. Once you start deploying walls, you're going to break these infrared sensors that are in the top. What's going to happen then is these LEDs will go out, and then you will start separating control of the rooms down to an individual room level. Okay? So, for example, if we put out all 5 walls, then we technically have 6 separate rooms. None of these lights are going to be on, and every controller in every room operates only that room. Okay? If we set up let's give an example. So let's say we we deploy one wall for rooms 1, 2, and 3 to keep the hallway in rooms 5 and 6 separate. So you will see 1, 2, and 3 will all be still joined. 4, 5, and 6 would be separate. You would see a line break right here. These LEDs would go out. So they would show you that those rooms are being controlled, and then these 3 rooms are being controlled. So you can separate control. What that gives you the ability to do is that the controller in this room will turn all of this off without affecting what's in rooms 1, 2, and 3.
And if the sensors are ever not doing what we want it to do, we just do this.
Yeah. You have manual control. You can physically join them, or you can physically separate them. Auto is just for the partition sensors. So if the partition sensors ever get in your way, you're not happy with them, you don't like them, you can join and separate all you want.
Is that mode working now? Is that another?
No.
Sensors are too far apart.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One, the sensors are too far apart. They're not low enough against the track. The track should have been installed flush with the ceiling.
Yeah.
So they're having to drop the sensors down to get it past the track. But they're also going to have to move them closer to get them closer together. Right now they're about 2 feet apart. They should be about a foot, and that gives it a little bit better shot. Because literally you're shooting, the size of a dime, trying to make these shots, and the closer you can get, the better off you are. But the panel is having some issues as well, so the panel's got to go back to the factory. So, but that's how the panel works. So the other thing I would do is, and it might be beneficial, is if these rooms have a specific address, like I noticed that says SH104.
We're going to relabel. Just gonna put some labels.
Yeah, I'd put labels on top of them. This is just a 24-volt power supply. That's all that is. So if you press the button in, it engages the power supply. If you pull it out, it turns it off. That's all there is to it. So, and then you can look in the top corner and see that the LED is off. So it shows this off.